He's about shots, he's about creating chances, he's a final third player, completely different to someone like Gini Wijnaldum.
He's a big boy, like he's huge as well, and I do wonder how, if you're a Premier League winger, like you could get at him.
We need a striker so bad.
You're not getting a striker.
Welcome to Monday Vibes, everybody. Look who's joined me. It's Doogie Critchley and it's Zachary Jalab. Boys, how was your weekend?
Good, thank you. Good. No football, no watching Chelsea lose, so cannot complain.
Yeah, but we did have to sit through the pain of watching England get robbed by the Aussies in the Ashes.
Difficult. I mean, it looks so like the unimaginable was going to happen once again when Ben Stokes, who is just superhuman, isn't he? Was at the crease and just knocking sixes everywhere. I also lost a tennis match to Henry Hill.
Badly as well, I hear.
A bad defeat. Yeah, he's a good tennis player, to be fair.
Did you win a set?
No. 6-2, 6-3. And also my family dog died as well. So
sorry to hear that, mate.
It was a difficult weekend. But shout out Tatty. Great dog.
Yeah, shout out Tatty. All right, we'll crack on with some football chat then, because obviously a big weekend yet again for transfers, even though Twitter was down for long portions of it. So I felt like every time I went on it, I couldn't see what transfers were happening.
Good, mate. This is like the olden days, the perfect time where you don't know what transfers happen.
We were talking about this, weren't we, on the weekend, talking about how, like, journalists, you're doing great work.
They are.
But you're also really ruining the excitement of football transfers. Yeah. Like, no longer do you just see a player and a kit and you're like, oh my days.
Well, just imagine like the Szoboszlai stuff where it's just like, oh, we see him in a Liverpool kit, like, and it's released. You're like, oh my god, that's ridiculous.
Although that did happen very quickly.
That did. I think Liverpool are quite good at it. I remember the Diogo Jota came out of nowhere as well. I think Danny Ings is perfect for like a secret move as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes next.
Yeah, very true. Actually,
done that twice now,
very true. Yeah, when he went to Aston Villa, I remember I had to do one of the first interviews with him, and he said that even his parents didn't know.
And West Ham.
Happened.
And West Ham. I'm in West Ham. I had no idea.
Yeah, very
Covert
true.
Danny Ings.
But you mentioned Dominik Szoboszlai a second ago, so let's start with Liverpool, because obviously we spoke briefly about this on Sunday Vibes. If you haven't seen that already, make sure you do go and check that out, because we are scouting budget options for big money moves this summer. But anyway, that has now been completed. He's wearing the Liverpool kit. The midfield revamp continues to roll on for Jurgen Klopp, following McAllister getting done probably like 3 weeks ago now. So they're getting early business done in a position of need, having missed out on their principal target in Jude Bellingham to Real Madrid. Dukes, you're a big fan of the Szoboszlai move, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I think if you'd said that Szoboszlai was joining Liverpool a year ago and he was going to play in a flat midfield three, I'd have my concerns. But I think this new formation with Trent coming into midfield alongside Fabinho when they're in possession should give that right-sided midfielder a lot of space to attack. And Szoboszlai is someone that you just want to get the ball to in dangerous areas. He's someone that makes something happen. And he's pretty different from what Klopp has used in midfield in the past. You know, he's not about ball retention. He's got a lot of energy about him, but he's about excitement. He's about shots. He's about creating chances. He's a final third player, completely different to someone like Gini Wijnaldum or even someone like Thiago, who he's used in those sort of free 8 slots in the past, and obviously at a very different stage of his career to Jordan Henderson as well. Last couple of years, 14 league goals and assists, both in the league, that is, in both Bundesliga campaigns. Last year, most shot creating actions per 90 in the Bundesliga, above, Musiala, Bellingham, Sepp Haller.
A lot from set pieces, though.
A lot from set pieces, but I think, he'll share probably set piece duties with Trent, particularly long range ones. But this is a signing that I'm actually genuinely really excited for. It feels like since the departure of Philippe Coutinho, Liverpool haven't really had a midfielder or someone in that 10 slot to do this sort of work that he can do. He could also hypothetically cover for Mo Salah on the right wing if Salah was to ever be given a rest ever. So I'm a big fan of it. It is a big fee, but I think it's an opportunistic move. They saw an opportunity, and I'm excited to see how he goes.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I think the only maybe concern you could slightly have is maybe his injury history. Obviously, he is super young when he's had kind of big injuries already, and actually the last midfielder they bought from RB Leipzig didn't really go down all too well, did it, in Naby Keita and his injuries at Anfield. But you can't complain with this business from Liverpool. I mean, I don't necessarily think it was the urgent midfield slot that was needed. I think last season kind of showed that Fabinho was starting to see the end of his kind of time at Liverpool, and that is still a position.
You think there's more of a decline rather than like a blip in his form?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more of a decline now that we're starting to see. We're starting to see, and anyway, like he is solidly into his 30s now. Like they're going to have to be thinking about the next guy, the next guy that is going to be taking into his position. And like when they were linked to Ram and Kone, like their thoughts there, and obviously that can still happen. But this might have been a transfer. They were like, look, Liverpool have shown with these links that they do know that is a position they want to look into. But this might have been a transfer where they thought, you know what? I think when they were talking with Carvalho to go to RB Leipzig, was there an opportunity to go and get Szoboszlai? And it ended up that there was, and they took it. And I think it's a fantastic one. Because if nobody did it this season, it wouldn't surprise me if in January or next summer, a lot more clubs would have been after him. It's actually surprised me that nobody kind of battled for his signature, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a surprise to me that Newcastle didn't go harder for Dominik Szoboszlai, having missed out on James Maddison just a few days earlier to Tottenham. But I think, I think it's a good signing. It's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool line up next season, because I think there is just this thought process amongst fans that every team can do what can do what Man City and Arsenal have done, or potentially going to do next season in Arsenal's case, where they go to this kind of 3 centre backs and they add a full back into the midfield. Zinchenko's going to invert. Trent's going to invert. But I look at the Liverpool team and I think the balance of it, I think Trent is definitely going to play more of a midfield role. I think we can all agree that's going to happen this year. But then I look at the back line and I think, you look at Man City, when that happens and a fullback or a centre-back inverts, or Zinchenko inverts, you can see Ben White dropping in there. He is a natural centre-back. Do I see Robertson inverting? No. Do I see Robertson going to play as part of a back three when Trent inverts? Not massively. I think his best game is higher up the pitch, overlapping runs, probably a leader in the press, playing very high at the pitch. So when Trent inverts, and you've got Szoboszlai, and you've got McAllister, which of the defenders drops into the 3 to support Van Dijk and Konate? Because at times last season when Trent did invert, exceptional against some of the smaller teams, but against the bigger teams, they were quite exposed in that flank. Konate did have to do an awful lot of work to cover into that fullback zone. He's not got the most spotless injury record, and they're looking to let Matip go. So how does it work with the back three, do you think, Dukes, with Robertson also playing in there? Or does Robertson finally get phased out? Didn't have his best season last year.
No, he didn't. I think it kind of went under the radar as well, how poor he was compared to his level of the last few years, of course. Still being an excellent servant for Liverpool, and still, I think it was £8 million originally, will go down as one of the best value signings in Premier League history. But at the same time, I'm kind of with you. I think we'll get onto it in due course, but Liverpool are looking at more of a defensive-minded midfielder. For me, I probably prioritise a left-sided centre-back, because Virgil van Dijk, I don't think anyone thinks he's done at all, but similar vein to Fabinho, was far from his best last year. And as you say, Konate, injury-prone, Matip, injury-prone / on the decline. They're quite thin at centre-back in terms of elite, options there. And you look at City, they are clearly so set and wedded into this formation, signing Josko Gvardiol, which we'll get onto in due course as well. Arsenal have signed another centre-back, should go through this week, in Urian Timber. So it feels like Liverpool were linked to the likes of Mickey van der Ven. Again, pretty inexperienced player at Wolfsburg, but seemingly a high potential. But I'm surprised they're not going to go for another centre-back before sorting out this other defensively minded midfielder, because they do still have Stefan Bajcetic, who shouldn't be forgotten about. I actually thought he showed a lot of promise last year. Yeah,
I think the midfield options are like much stronger now for Liverpool with that Szoboszlai addition. I think the other thing that Szoboszlai adds is that when Salah cuts in and inverts, which he pretty much always wants to do, doesn't he? Szoboszlai might be able to drift wider, and that offers a little bit more balance when you don't have Trent doing that overlapping run anymore. Trent's inverting. Szoboszlai can slot out onto that right side. We know he's got fantastic delivery, both from dead balls, but also just that sort of whipped Kevin De Bruyne-esque cross. I think it is a good signing. It's a good signing, but it's a very intriguing one to see the balance of that midfield with McAllister in there, how the balance of the back line adjusts to see Trent drop into the midfield as well. I think it's going to be a great watch this season. They're also after another midfielder, supposedly or reportedly. What do we think of the Romeo Lavia deal?
Love it.
£50 million.
It's always been 50 million. It was 50 million in the last summer. It was, and that didn't even get accepted. It's 50 million now. Like, they've gone down, obviously, the league. I know that, but they know that obviously Man City can get him next summer for 40 million. And so they want to be able to try and get a little bit more than that if they can.
I think that's big money, man.
It is big money for a championship side as well.
For a 19-year-old who's played, I think, 19 or 21 starts last season.
And he's a defensive monster, but we've not really maybe seen the other side of his game as much. I think it'd be good for himself. Moving to Liverpool is a fantastic
move for Romeo
going to
Lavia.
play that DM role be incredible for sure. But he wouldn't be playing enough. This is what I mentioned earlier about, obviously, they need to get somebody to play with Fabinho. But I don't know whether Klopp would play him over Fabinho in maybe like the mid-level games. Like obviously, maybe the easier games per se, like if you get drawn against the Championship side, League One side, and the FA Cup, League Cup.
Don't forget they've got Europa League football as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then maybe that helps.
That's
a little,
good.
That helps a little. That definitely helps a little bit more. But say when they're playing against, I don't know, Aston Villa, like it's easily going to be Fabinho. Then I think that you want someone to challenge Fabinho for those games more so too.
I think this is quite. I think it's an overpay. I think £50 million is an overpay, but I think it's actually quite a nice fit having an extremely young, because he is like so young, competing with Fabinho, who we did see a significant drop off in that defensive midfield role, vying for position. I think they could also play together in certain games, given, you know, Romeo Lavia is extremely press resistant. I think back to that Arsenal game, was it against Arsenal, when Southampton took a point off them towards the back end of the season. He was awesome on the ball, as good as he was off the ball, in tight spaces, turning. I think it'd be a very, very exciting transfer. I do think £50 million is an awful lot of money, but you know, if there's no more business for Liverpool to do and they don't end up signing a centre back, maybe it's fine.
But if they go into the season, you mentioned him earlier, if they go into the season with three midfielders that play that role in Lavia, Fabinho, and Bacacic, like that's not terrible, to be fair. Like obviously he was very, very impressive last season before he got that injury, and obviously he's incredibly young himself too.
He's only 18
as well,
maybe 19.
and so maybe that's not the worst case to be in as well. And look, Lavia does look really, really impressive. Lavia looks like a fantastic defensive midfielder in terms of just winning you back the ball. But what Klopp will want him to do more so as well is the other side too. And so if Klopp believes that he can develop him in and improve his game on that side as well, then 100% go and do that transfer. It's just, I guess, whether Klopp feels like he has that side to him, or from the scouting that they've done around his transfer.
Yeah. It's a big departure. I mean, a year ago, Klopp was saying, we don't need any midfielders, and obviously quite a few have left, but I think the season proved that they definitely did last summer. And, you know, now they've got, if they do get Lavia, that's an incredible roster of midfielders. You know, someone's going to be a bit unhappy, whether it's Thiago, whether it's Curtis Jones, who, as Joe said earlier, finished the season really strongly. There's a lot of competition for places in there, and Lavia I don't think starts in their starting 11, but a really good player to have and build up for the future. But it's just bad news for someone like Harvey Elliott, finding very difficult to find a place in the starting 11, anywhere close to the starting 11 for him.
And honestly, as a manager, like, you probably want that situation.
Yeah.
Like, you probably want your players going to you like, I'm not happy, I'm not playing enough, and you can't go like, well, that's because we're playing really, really well, and I can't give you a spot there. You need to improve or so. And I mean, whilst I think Harvey Elliott definitely adapted to playing in midfield, I still see him more.
I think he's a right winger.
A right winger, yeah, exactly. Same with Carvalho as well. When he was playing in midfield, I think he's further forward, and hopefully that works for him at RB Leipzig too. Yeah, and I guess it makes sense as well now why they pulled out of Bellingham, because for that amount of money they can go and get the three players rather than the one player they would have got in midfield, although he would have been fantastic, that's for sure.
And he wanted to join Madrid. Let's just put that out there. Madrid was his dream destination.
So they always say. I mean, and then the other point as well I was going to say is that Jurgen Klopp does have a big job here. Like, he's got a lot of players now to teach this system to and how they want to work. And look, he's obviously a fantastic, one of the world's best managers, so I don't put it past him to do that. But we might see Liverpool kind of stutter for the first 6 months before they really all kind of get it.
I don't think so. I think they're back, baby.
They've got two brand new midfielders. You got Luis Diaz, who's barely ever played with Nunes.
I think we saw at the back end of last season that Liverpool had made significant strides in that new formation, and I don't think
changed their entire midfield.
I mean, they've upgraded it. They've improved it. I think the front line.
Take time, sure.
The front line, I thought, with Diaz returning, I thought Gakpo towards the back end of the season looked really impressive. I'm not massively convinced Nunes is a nailed-on starter in this lineup. I think it'll be Diaz, Gakpo, Salah. I think Darwin Nunes probably more of an impact option and a rotation option. Szoboszlai, McAllister in the midfield, Fabinho, Trent tucking in. I think the biggest issue now, I know that they still want to sign Kefrem Turam. Now the under 21 Euros is over. That might, or for him anyway, it might kind of speed up a little bit. I almost think they need, like, Gvardiol would have been perfect for Liverpool, and I would have played him as a left. I would have played Gvardiol as a left back, transition to that tucked in back three with him, Van Dijk, Konate, Trent moving into the midfield when they're in possession. But obviously it's not going to happen now. Like, he's going to go to Manchester City. But I think Liverpool are going to be extremely dangerous next year.
I think it might just take a little bit of time.
I can see them finishing second. What do you think, Dukes?
Yeah, second or third for me, to be honest. I think Arsenal are more settled than Liverpool at this moment in time. True. Arsenal do have a couple of new additions, but as you say, in less key areas, although are potentially changing their entire midfield as well. So it's maybe a little bit of a toss-up between them. But I do think, Arsenal just had a much better season last year, probably going in with more confidence. I just think Arsenal, I wouldn't write off Arsenal finishing second. But it's crazy that we're even getting to this stage and we're just like, we're competing for second, aren't we, really? And this Josko Gvardiol deal just makes it seem even more likely that City are going to potentially win it all over again. Yeah,
I mean, let's just talk about it then, shall we? Because it is a world record fee for a defender, isn't it? 100 million euros, I think 86 million pounds. It's expected to be done, if not today, then early this week. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's just a mind-blowing deal.
I mean, it's what City do, right? When they know what player they want for 100%, they go out and get him, and they have that price in their head, and they don't go over it. And that's kind of what they've done now with Gvardiol. They went in for Rice. Price went too high, and they said no, we don't fancy it, and so we'll go focus on our other target, which was a defender. Losing Laporte, getting in Gvardiol, who is so incredibly young, and is going to be kind of taught under Pep's tutelage, is going to be really, really impressive to see kind of what defender he develops into. I mean, it just backs him up to continue to this ridiculous amount of success year on year on year. For Gvardiol as well, I mean, what a meteoric rise he's had. Yeah. I mean, and the World Cup, I've said it a few times on this show, but I really do feel like the World Cup is where people started to notice him. I think obviously in the league he's had ups and downs this season, but RB Leipzig have in general, obviously. But for him to have done what he's done, to now go over to Man City, to probably go and win a Premier League, to go and battle highly in the Champions League at the age of just 21 years old, like, that is mega. And what's really, really good as well is that they've brought in Mateo Kovacic, somebody who can obviously speak his language as well and can help him settle into living in England and playing in the Premier League. It suited really, really well. And it wouldn't shock me if Pep just does what he does and kind of gives them a bit of time, maybe plays them on the bench for the start, let them get used to the way they want to play their football, and then by, say, November, he's absolutely bossing the Premier League.
Yeah, I'm concerned about this signing. As like a rival fan, Manchester United fan, this worries me big time. I mean, it is Man City flexing the muscles, isn't it? Going and signing the best young centre-back in the world, a player who is effectively perfect for that new system that Pep's developing, where he doesn't really play fullbacks anymore. Like, they are just going to be defensively so hard to break down with Josko Gvardiol in there. He's so physical, covers the ground so easily, but also an absolute monster on the ball, able to step into midfield. With him and John Stones flanking Ruben Diaz, it's a worry, isn't it? It is a worry. I mean, I don't really know what it means for the future of Kyle Walker. I think it does have an impact on the future of Kyle Walker because it's another central defensive body in there. It signals another shift away from the fullback system that Kyle Walker has been so key to. So I wonder if that maybe pushes him slightly more towards Bayern Munich. But, I mean, yeah, it's mud for the rest of the league, isn't it? I'm just stunned. 100 million.
Yeah, it felt like, I'm actually quite surprised looking back on it that City went as far as they did with Rice, because Gvardiol feels more crucial in that, with Rice, yes, they could play him in that Gundogan role, but it's quite different from what Rice has been doing at West Ham to go play that Gundogan role. I think it is, it's much more about tempo setting, late runs into the box, and it's not really Rice's best game. And with Rodri there, it didn't feel like Rice was as crucial to them, whereas Gvardiol, Ake, Akanji can play in that left-sided role, but Gvardiol's just a different quality of centre-back, to be honest. And I think, if John Stones, he's probably got the best passing range along with John Stones in that defence, and also has that sort of bullish, hard-edged defending style that Ruben Diaz has got. So he feels like the perfect mix of all their best defenders already.
And he's left-footed.
He's a big boy. Like, he's huge as well. And I do wonder how, if you're a Premier League winger, like, you could get at him if you wanted to. Like, he's like, agility in terms of the way he turns isn't maybe the...
Yeah, but we would have said that about Manuel Akanji, and he was an absolute monster last season.
I think they're different, right?
Yeah, but they're different. Like, in terms of his stature, Manuel Akanji is he's like a big unit.
He's also so much more stockier, I think, Gvardiol, and like, he's only 20, like, he will get bigger too. I mean, look, it's something you can develop for sure, but I do think Premier League wingers, like, if there's one, this is a guy who is a fantastic, like, could be a ridiculous, one of the best centre backs in the world. But if you're one of the Premier League wingers, like, that's the side of things I'd look to try and get at him for. Is to try and that could be like the only weakness.
I think it. Game. Like, we've been talking for a long time, haven't we? Oh, City gonna have to sign a left back, Like, this is as clear. This is as clear a shift as you're going to see in terms of Pep saying fullbacks are done for me. Like, Rico Lewis what a sensational talent, but I keep seeing people saying like he's going to be Man City's breakout star. Like, I don't see necessarily, I'm sure he will play, but I think with the 4 centre-backs that Pep is using now, maybe Rico Lewis's role adapts slightly, maybe he has to play as a little bit more of a midfielder, because I don't think Pep's going to go back to that system that he used to. I think it is going to be much more paused, it's going to be much more of big centre-back stepping into midfield a la John Stones.
But how long is Pep going to be there for? His contract ends in 2025. Yeah, for sure. But then if you go and sell Rico Lewis...
No, I would never sell Rico Lewis. I'm not saying sell Rico Lewis.
But
I'm just saying this season, I don't see him getting as many minutes as I was previously expecting to. I thought this was going to be his breakthrough campaign. He was going to be starting right back. I don't think that that's going to happen now that they've signed another centre-back.
Yeah, okay. The only concern I was going to say was then, if they're not, I thought you were going to head towards maybe selling him if he wants for his career. Because, yeah, if Pep is only there until 2025... the next manager might want to go back into fullbacks and might want to look into play that way. I mean, the way they play is tough. It's really, really tough, and not many managers could replicate it. So, yeah, City shouldn't maybe look too far away from like not getting in a fullback, keeping Rico Lewis for sure. Like having a left back option there is not a bad idea, and obviously they've got Sergio Gomez too, which can do that role just for the future because. Yeah, I have a feeling that Pep might just call it at 2025.
I mean, he has done it all.
I'd also fight to keep hold of Kyle Walker a lot because in terms of a one-on-one defender in those key one-on-one battles we've seen it against Mbappe, we've seen it against Vinicius Jr. in the last 2 years. Like that pace is just
the experience.
But then you've got
one of the captains.
You've got to sell that to Kyle Walker as well, haven't you? Like that is effectively a bit part role. Yeah, and like he's not old enough to be
starting job at Bayern.
Yeah, he wants to play in the Euros. He'll be wanting to play in the Euros.
Yeah, like I think being like a specialist 1v1 defender as Kyle Walker, I think that's a bit of a tough sell. Like he has won everything now at Manchester City. Does he fancy getting a new challenger in his belt where he's going to be the guaranteed starting right back every week at Bayern Munich? I think that's a tough sell. While we're on the topic of defenders, should we just talk about Wolves?
Crazy.
What has happened this weekend? Of course, you guys might have missed it, but Max Kilman, the target of major interest from Napoli to the tune of 35 million euros. I think that bid has been rejected. Nathan Collins has joined Brentford. Connor Cody's gone to Leicester. The whole squad is getting massively overhauled. I mean, Julian Lopetegui, I know he committed his future like a month ago, but...
Yeah, I wonder whether he's slightly regretting it.
But they must have explained it, surely, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, there was, the Fosun, etc., have had financial difficulties for a while, like a lot of Chinese investors in the side effects of COVID, etc. But it does feel slightly worrying, and they rejected I think it was initially 30 million from Napoli, but they value him at closer to 35. So that kind of feels like a deal that will be done. And then Nathan Collins, they've agreed a deal to sell him to Brentford for something like a £3 million profit on the back of... He only joined last summer. So it's not like they've had a massive return. And yes, he did slightly drop out of the starting lineup towards the back end of the year. And Collins Craig Dawson, replaced him in the starting lineup. But I still think this is two centre-backs who, with a really high ceiling, I think, that could go on to be, very good Premier League centre-backs. And I think Max Kilman already is. So I think this is a huge loss in a time where there's so much upheaval around Wolves. And you look around the Premier League right now, of the clubs that stayed up, I'm most worried about them and Everton.
Really? Yeah. I'm slightly more settled by Wolves just because of Lopetegui. Like if Lopetegui was to walk tomorrow, then I would be like, wow, they've sold selling all their centre backs. Neves has gone to Saudi Arabia. Martinho didn't renew.
Adama Traore's left.
Yeah, Adama Traore's gone. Up front, like Jimenez went. Obviously not a massive impact, but Diego Costa also went. He's a warm body at least.
Definitely left.
Yeah, I think that Raul Jimenez is out of contract. He's gone.
Connor Cody's gone Leicester.
So I think the squad needs serious work. They need to sign midfielders. I know Boubacar Traore has obviously been made permanent, and they managed to obviously got Lamina through the door, didn't they? And so they have to some level, Mateus Nunes, they have to some level plan for the midfield, but still feels like they need centre-back, still feels like they need another midfielder, and by God, do they need a striker? They've got to get a striker.
They have Thingy coming back from injury, don't they?
Sasa Klasic.
Yeah, and obviously he got injured within the first week?
2 weeks last season? Halfway through his first game.
And Fabio Silva's back from PSV.
Yeah, and they were kind of planning on him being the striker for them last season. So maybe they're thinking, look, if we've got Silva's coming back, we've got...
Legar's coming off a huge injury as well.
And no experience in the Premier League.
Yeah, for sure, but he was going to have no experience in the Premier League last season as well.
But he didn't have an ACL problem last season.
For sure, but they've already spent the money on him. They can't go and spend even more money on.
They've lost two of their best passes.
They
in the
can
team
go and
as well.
they've got to go and spend more money on the striker.
They've got no money.
They've just got 50 million from Ruben Neves. They're going to take 60 million from the two centre backs.
They have the financial issues they've got to pay off as well, and they've got to go and get at least 2 more centre backs too.
They've got to sign a striker. It'd be crazy. The Wolves went a full calendar year without a striker scoring a goal.
Yeah.
That's just cannot happen again this year if they want to stay in the Premier League with or without Julian Lopetegui. For me, I think
defence is the bigger issue.
It's interesting from Brentford's perspective as well, spending this money on Nathan Collins. Look, I think he's a great player, but they're actually quite stocked for centre-backs. You know, with Pinnock, Aya, Janssen. I feel like I'm missing someone.
I think Pontus
Jansson's
Jansson's left, actually.
Okay, it's Pontus Jansson's leaving. Okay. But, I mean, it's a great centre-back to have on your books as well. And actually for a really good price. As I say, I think he cost Wolves £20 million last summer. So to get him for 23, nice piece of business. But, yeah, it feels like Wolves are teetering on the edge of a potential disastrous summer.
Yeah, I actually agree. Let's talk about some more transfers then that happened over the weekend or are happening. Christian Pulisic, your man. Lots of interest.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but lots of interest.
I can understand why. This is a guy that is still...
He's got no legs.
Yeah, but he's still very, very young, and when he has stayed fit, he does look
when was
interesting. Like, he does look interesting when he stayed fit.
When was he last fit, though?
2 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that also, you know, you can't just say a player's then done forever when he's 24 years old.
I agree. I'm not saying he's done forever.
When he's playing for the USA,
would I be
spending
25 million on Christian Pulisic this summer if I was Leon, who are cash strapped as it is and looking to sell players? God, no.
I think that would be an absolutely fine signing. I honestly do. Like, the guy, if he can have consistency, if he can play in a league which is maybe a little less physically demanding, like maybe League One will be, where he can kind of use, which I think the league is perfect for the strengths that he has. I think it'd be a fantastic move. Same with AC Milan. I think that would be a brilliant move. Obviously, they came in 10 million less than Leon, but obviously they put the bid in first, and so maybe they'll kind of match Leon and kind of give the option to him. They're kind of making a Chelsea reject side over there at times, haven't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, like Pulisic has shown, I think on numerous occasions, like there is a talented winger in there.
I agree with that.
He's great on the ball, who's quick, can take on a man very easily, who's finishing could probably still be improved, but is okay. And it's just been about kind of having game time, and that is very much due to his injuries. And so for 25 million euros, I think that's a fair enough deal for him if he can stay fit.
It's a great. I think it's a brilliant sell for Chelsea. I think their outgoings this summer have been exceptional, both to Saudi Arabia and to Europe. I think they're getting really good fees for players. I think 25. I agree with 25 million euros is
I think they've lost
big
a lot
money.
of quite key players as well over the last couple of years as well, like Mount and Kovacic. I think are big departures. Havertz less so. They've got a good amount of money for him, but they do look quite. I mean, they're not short on players now, but they look short of players that have ever done anything for Chelsea, which has got a bit of a risk attached to it. I would be slightly concerned right now as a Chelsea fan.
Maybe a bit short in the midfield.
They're short in the midfield, but also
you kind of going Caicedo. I feel like I'd be a lot more calm.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? I think Caicedo, if Caicedo feels like he'd be joining this week. Obviously, Chelsea players go back to training on Tuesday, so tomorrow after this video goes out. Yeah, I can understand, but I think Chelsea have no European football. They've got so many less games to play this year. It's very much a season where Pochettino can just develop players, can figure out who he wants on his side, what maybe he wants to try and pick up in January if needed.
It's his first day today, isn't it?
Strengthening. Yeah, it's his first day today at Cobham.
And it was the most bloated squad in football history.
It really was. Well, didn't we sit there and we're like, did we not get to 50-something players?
I think I was when I did the stay or go, I think I was about 44.
And we were literally like, they need to.
I think they're doing a great job with the outgoings. They are doing a great job with the outgoings. I still think you're a midfielder short.
I think there's been so much talk about this Santos kid who's Brazilian. Obviously, we bought him last year, but he couldn't get the work permit. Seems like the work permit is now sorted. Don't know what will happen if he goes out on loan. Maybe he stays. I think there's a couple of them like Casadei who had a decent.
Clearly, they're very talented, lots of them.
Decent season.
But very young and very inexperienced.
For sure, but I mean, what was the famous saying when people said you can't win anything with kids? Like, if they're young enough and they're talented enough and can do it. I'm not saying we're going for the league at all, but what I'm saying is if we've got nothing in Europe, and we are lacking in certain positions, like maybe he figures it out. Maybe he sees what happens in pre-season. He goes, you know what? I'm happy to keep Castellani for this year. I'm happy to. Obviously, Chukwuemeka's already played for Chelsea. He can get developed more. I just think it's going to be a bit more. I think if we get
Caicedo's
if you get top
massively
four,
needed
very,
now.
very well.
Like
Yeah,
Caicedo's got to happen. Like Brighton, the only thing is I do feel because you've sold brilliantly, as I've said a few times in this, and you had to get it done by that FFP period by the end of June, obviously. But because Brighton know you sold so well, if I was Tony Bloom, I'd be sitting there and going,
I need 100.
That'll be an extra 20. I want 100. Like, which is probably going to happen, and you probably end up paying it because you don't really seem to care about money, do you? As you are just shrugging your shoulders, there are 100 million. But like, yeah, I think with 100 million on Caicedo,
It'd more likely be 80 million with 20 million add-ons.
I still think you need a striker. I know that Nicholas Jackson's through the door,
sure, but you sat here on Sunday Vibes and was like, the striker market.
It is.
So what are we going to do? Like, I don't see. I agree, but my point is like, we've got Nicholas Jackson. We've got
endless
Broja.
cash.
Like,
You've got endless cash. Endless cash.
But we're not going to go and spend 150 on Osterman. So who then?
Why
Who
not?
after that?
Why not?
Because we can't. We just literally sorted out FFP issues just now. Can't go and break them again to go just have the same issue next season.
If I was Chelsea, I would be very, very tempted.
I'm kind of with Zach on that. I don't think they can afford to.
Like Victor Osimhen, like I agree. Striker, like I do think there should be.
If United had the money, I
certain
would be going just to spend it. Spend it on Osimhen. You've got the money.
But I don't think you do
150
have the money.
million is like so much, ridiculous amount of fee, and that like 150 million, you want a striker to be getting you probably 27 goals in the league at least.
Very niche number, very specific.
27?
For 150 million up front, yeah.
It's such a specific number.
Sure.
It's not like 30 or 25.
Well, sure, 25, whatever, right? Like
I
but
think
they need
Osimhen
to
would
be-
get you 25 goals in the league.
I could see Osimhen just getting an injury and being out for half the season. I just don't feel like
mean,
that
it's
is
just
the
guesswork,
risk.
isn't it, I
But
suppose,
I don't
but
feel, but that's the point. For 150 million to then go and buy on a guy that's injury record's a bit patchy.
You
Like
did
I do
100
think
million
it
on
is.
Lukaku.
Yeah, and look how that worked out.
I know, but that shouldn't be putting you off spending big money on a striker again. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Nicholas Jackson's going to be fine, but is he that much better than David Datro, Fofana, Broja? Is he going to start
The way
over
I look at
Nkunku?
it, kind of, if we're not in the Champions League, we're not going to be winning the Premier League anyway, right?
Yeah, but you've got to be finishing top 4.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he could. Finish. We finished top 4 when we had I think our most goals was Jorginho on 9.
Yeah, but you had a
When
players.
Tammy scored 15 goals, I could theoretically see between Broja and Nicholas Jackson 15 Premier League goals up front between them at least.
I think it's like Man United. I think you're just crying out for a number 9. I think all we did last season was say Chelsea have to sign a number 9. They can't
But
score
who?
a goal. You literally sat here on nearly every show and said we need to sign a striker.
But who?
You're
That's
not going to
the
sign a
thing.
striker.
But who? Like I like if Victor Osimhen was 80 million, I'd sit there and be like, spend the cash right now.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's 150.
You've just sold 120
I think-
million worth of player in Mount and Havertz. Stick that on Osimhen.
I just don't know how anyone can say for sure how it's going to go at Chelsea right now next season. Like, you look at their squad when you won the Champions League 2 years ago. There's barely anyone still
There's
there.
2 left now. Reece James, 3. Reece
That
James,
is
Thiago Silva,
a
Chilwell.
crazy amount of turnover.
But would you not?
And Kepa.
if-
I think your
but would you
struggles
not
to be
have
as bad
swapped?
as last year.
Would you not have swapped Mount, Havertz, and Koulibaly for Osimhen? I would say if that deal was
No.
available. Come on. As a Chelsea, yes, you would.
I don't know. That's putting a lot of pressure on one player.
And say he gets to November and he's injured. Wow,
I think that's
If you
crazy.
hadn't included Mount in that,
Yeah,
then
it'd be
yeah, but
different.
obviously Mount's just such a big loss.
I think he's a massive loss, but I think Chelsea's needs for a striker are that big that those 3 players
If you can go
sold
to
for
me here,
150 mil and buy Osimhen for 150 mil, I think it's
I
fine.
just don't think you're going to get. Right. But then there's the issues. Like half the reason we sold them is for the FFP issues. You're then going to screw yourself over in the future. Like Osimhen is fantastic. Osimhen is great, but Osimhen had such a good season. He's priced himself out of a move. Same reason. Why don't you guys go spend 150 million on
But we
Osimhen?
physically can't. We've got no cash.
I don't think we can.
You've just sold 150 mil, as I've
Yeah,
explained.
but then again, it's going to screw us over in the future, as I explained.
We can't sell more
I think
than.
we're at an impasse.
We can't sell a player for more than £1 million.
Go talk to Todd, mate. Todd will
We're
help you out.
terrible at selling players. Like, I don't think United and Chelsea are anywhere near in the same boat in terms of being able to buy players this summer.
Look, if there was a cheaper striker than Osimhen, I agree, but I don't think there is. Like Vlahovic, I'd be worried if we got Vlahovic because I think like there is potential for him to be successful. There's also the potential for him to flop, and so.
I suppose like with any signing,
A
but
little
yes,
bit-
too.
and
but-
also, if
but
you
a
hadn't
little bit of
signed
me is-
Jackson, that would have been another 35 mil you could have put towards it.
But a little bit of me is sitting there and going, you know what? See what Poch thinks to Lukaku. But then if you go into the season, honestly, if you go into the season with Jackson, Lukaku, and Broja, I'm not that angry about that.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not that angry about that at all.
You are having Lukaku back after the interviews he's done, after the way he's
If
treated you as
Lukaku's-
fans.
yeah,
new
because
era.
all you have to do is score. All we have to do is score a goal, and then I'll be all right. Honestly, mate, we can't score a goal to save our life. So if he goes and gets 20 goals in the league. 15
Oh,
goals in the
I'm
league.
going to walk off.
15 goals in the league.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy
We're in
with that.
cuckoo land if we think Lukaku's getting 20 Premier League goals next
Sorry,
year.
okay, 15 goals.
He's
no, I
not
take
playing for the
your
club
point.
again.
Fine.
He's
If you get-
surely not playing for the club again.
And I'm also more of that ilk for sure. But what if we're sitting in this imaginary scenario where Chelsea could go and spend 150 on Osimhen, then maybe I'd wait and see what happens. Because also what could happen, right, is this season we see another kind of striker breakout, or who's the boy at Atalanta that I've forgotten his name.
Rasmus Højlund.
Yeah, Højlund has another fantastic season develops. Then you
Becomes
go into
even
next
more
season,
expensive.
It does become even more
100
expensive,
million,
but then you can understand what to go and spend that on that kind of guy for next season, rather than a risk right now when he's got at least 2 seasons under
Get
his belt
Evan
and one.
Ferguson.
Or, I mean, that's the boy I'd happily go spend 100
How much do
million
you think Evan would cost?
Right now,
Griezmann?
he
A
costs
lot.
you
Brighton
60
Brighton's got
million
so
at
much
least.
cash.
But is 60 million that much cash?
No, but Brighton have no need to sell him.
Yeah, I agree.
And
And
I
he signed a
think
new
they'd
contract.
ask for a lot of
Signed a
money.
new contract.
I don't think
as
he'd
well.
leave either, man. Like, I think he's in a
I
fantastic
don't know.
place.
I think if Man United come in for you and you've got the chance to be their
And he's a
starting number
huge
9.
United fan.
Yeah. Is he?
Yeah.
A lot of Irish kids are, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think
I
he'd be an
think-
awesome pickup for United, to be honest.
He'd be an awesome pickup for anyone. Man.
Yeah,
He really
if he
would.
especially given some of the other fees being quoted for strikers.
How much would he cost in the
Drop
summer
it.
then? Next summer, he could be ridiculous.
I
He's
know.
getting close to 80, 90, don't he?
But like,
What a guy.
should we talk about some? I think Chelsea fans, let me know in the comments below. I'm probably going to be getting absolutely hammering for that, but I want to hear from you guys.
I understand
in
your
the comments
thinking.
below. I just think
I
that
understand your thinking.
with themselves, you can afford to play a lot.
I also think you also, like, from a Chelsea point of view, we've been burnt by so many strikers.
I know, that is
Like,
your problem,
Going
isn't
and
it?
spending on that much, I could just see it flopping.
Emotionally, you've all been burnt. Okay, let's talk about a player who has joined officially. I think now, Manuel Solomon gone to Spurs.
Yep.
Spurs doing their business early and pretty well, pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, fair play, getting him for free. I feel really sorry for Fulham as well.
I feel sorry for
And
Shakhtar.
Shakhtar Donetsk. Yeah, and Shakhtar Donetsk, to be fair to them. Yeah, Jesus.
Stitched
Getting
up.
no fee for them. But don't worry, they will be playing a charity game against Tottenham Hotspur.
As if that's
So
a big
hopefully,
compensation.
I don't know, something can work out from that, at least to get them some sort of money for it. Yeah, I mean, he's not starting, is he? He's not going to be starting for Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, it depends the start to the season Son has. If Son has a start to the season like he did last year, then maybe.
Son Remontada is coming.
I think
agree.
he's a fun. I think he was fun. I think he had good minutes for Fulham, very much like when he came off the bench and did well for them. I just don't think he's going to. I just don't see him starting for Spurs this season at all. I think he's like a really good bench option, a guy who maybe in a League Cup game where you need to share your minutes around or something, then you can go and swap him in for Son or Kulusevski. But I just don't.
He was
really see it.
impactful. The replica goals were quite fun, weren't they?
Yeah, coming
But
in off the left.
yeah,
starting onto
I
his
think he's
right.
tidy. Like,
He was
he's
a bench
tidy
option
player.
for Fulham, though. So he's going to be a bench option for Spurs.
But he
for
was
sure,
a bench
but-
option for Fulham because he was injured a lot.
True. I mean, I think he made 19 Premier League appearances and only 4 or 5 of them were starts. So, I mean, that's a fair amount from January onwards. But, yeah, I mean, there's not a big ask. He's replacing Lucas Moura, who was pretty useless last year. You know, not a useless player, but was useless last year. Danjuma didn't get a look in after being brought in by Conte. Even towards the back end of the year was not really playing much. So he's got a very low bar to be more useful than them. And yeah, I don't know whether the future of Brian Hill's been decided yet. Maybe they'll keep him. He actually looked all right on loan at Sevilla last year. But yes, it'll be interesting. I think he's just a solid person to have off the bench.
I think for someone like Ange as well, Ange Postecoglou, like he must be quite happy with the business right now. Getting in James Maddison. Sorting out the keeper
Vicario.
situation, Vicario. Obviously, they've been linked to two centre backs as well, which shows that Spurs have identified the issues they need. The players they need to get in to rectify their issues.
Could
It's
win
really,
the window
really
for
solid.
the second year in a row.
Yeah, they could win the window for a second year in a row, and it went so well last time, didn't it? But I think there might be a few decisions which we'll see in pre-season. Once Ange gets them in, he might go, you know what? We don't need a left back, or I like Eric Dyer, so I'll happily keep him for one more season. So then we might see a few more things. He starts as well today as well for Spurs.
The whole issue,
So
though,
that'll
isn't
be
it, is
interesting.
like the whole summer revolves around Kane again. Because if we get to the end of July and then Bayern bid 110 million euros and it goes, the whole summer is just ruined.
I
think
think he's
they've
not
now
leaving.
waited too long.
I think he's
I
not
don't-
leaving now.
I
really
think they've
do.
made a decision they're not going to accept any bid.
Which is just
It's
farcical.
bonkers, but it's Daniel Levy.
But this is how it works. So you know what? Maybe we sit here in a year's time and Kane signed a new contract.
But no.
No.
He's not going to sign a new contract. And
I think there's more chance
think-
of me becoming Spurs manager than Kane signing a new contract.
I think, yeah.
It wouldn't, honestly, it wouldn't shock me.
It would be the biggest shock I've ever seen in football if Kane signs.
Ever seen in football.
It'd be bizarre. He's going to have so many
contender.
offers next year from top clubs. Why on
He'll
earth
have
would he stay at
pre-contracts
Spurs?
in January from
I
Real Madrid
agree.
and Bayern
He's going to
Munich
have
on the
2-3
table.
years left of his career, or at least of his peak. Like
He'll have
But
every
this is-
single
next
one of the
summer.
top 4
But this
clubs.
is someone we said about before he
making
signed his
offers
last
to it.
contract, and then he signed his
Yeah,
contract.
but he'll have
things went well.
in January. I know it won't be official pre-contracts. You can't do it as other Premier League clubs. Clubs will be trebling his Tottenham salary. They'll be offering him 500k
as long
a
as
week.
he's not injured.
What's
yeah.
it now?
He's probably on about. I think he's on like 150, 200 grand.
I think he's on
Surely,
250.
at least
is he not?
200, surely.
I'm not not sure he's on much more than 200. Even doubling his salary. Spurs cannot outbid a Manchester City in terms of money.
Yeah, but he's not going to Man City.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, because unless Haaland
Erling's
leaves.
off to Madrid.
I mean, maybe, but I think he's more likely to go to.
Like,
he's
cross
more
your
likely to go
fingers.
to Real
Harry Kane
Madrid
then
or
goes to
Man
Spurs.
United
Chelsea.
than Man City.
Chelsea.
He's not going to go to Chelsea. That's one
As
place
much
I
as
don't think
love
he's going
him,
to go.
yeah, he'd never come to us.
And Arsenal.
He actually said, I
Bayern
think,
Munich,
in
Real
some
Madrid,
interview.
they'll all be offering him way
no, I
bigger.
agree. He'll definitely have offers.
Would he go to Real Madrid
transfers.
in the summer? And see then going and killing Mbappe?
Why not?
I don't know, because he wants to, like, this whole Premier League goal record
If he
stuff.
signs a new contract to Spurs, I would.
The only place I could see him playing
blow
for
me out of the
after
water.
Spurs and stay in the Premier League is you guys.
It would blow me out the water
Or
to
Newcastle.
see him. No, come on.
Imagine.
That would be
Break the
hilarious.
record at Shearer's home.
No. I just can't see it. I just can't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. But
No, look, again, and I'm very much talking. I'm kind
I still
of I'm
think
being
Bayern-
devil's advocate as
I
well.
still think
Like,
Bayern are going to come in multiple
I think it'd be
times
stupid to
again
do
this
that.
summer. They're not giving up on Harry Kane after one bid.
two bids.
Even 2 bids.
I don't think they're going to give up, but they just show no inclination that they're going to sell to
Yeah.
anyone. I know
Yeah.
they'd rather sell
Wow.
abroad, but I don't get it. Personally, I think it makes no sense, but I just don't think he's going to move.
I just it'd be crazy. But anyway, let's move on to another club that are crazy. Man United right now in the market. Just
Yeah, you seem quite down.
I mean,
Mason
what's
Mount's
going
about
on,
to be
mate?
a
It's because of how
It's a great signing,
they've
man.
disrespected David De Gea.
buzzing.
That's why.
Buzzing about Mason Mount, man. Like, absolutely buzzing about Mason Mount. Fantastic signing for United. Really, really happy to get him through the door. And obviously, Ten Hag's wanted him big
Since Ajax,
time.
yeah, he wanted him off
wanted
as
him
Vitesse
big
name.
time. So, if Ten Hag wants a player, just give him the player. But the issue for me is, like, we've got no money. FFP's buying big time. We've done 50 million, 55 million, whatever it ended up being, on a midfielder. We need a striker so bad.
You're not getting a striker.
You're
getting Onana.
there is no way United can end this summer without signing
But
at
if you're going to
least
spend
one striker.
50 to 60 million on Onana, what money do you have left for a striker?
I'm telling you that as much of a problem as De Gea was, and I agree, Onana, I would love him to replace De Gea. If that means United can't sign a striker, it's an error.
I've heard this violins chat about you guys having no money. Like last summer, you signed
happens all
Casemiro
the
and
time, doesn't it?
Anthony.
Happens all
Exactly,
the
that's
You
time.
what's
signed
done us.
Varane. You signed Lissandro Martinez.
Eventually, that comes back to bite you, Dukes. Eventually, that poor
Yeah, but we've
financial
said this
management
for
You've
comes
not
back to bite
sold
you.
well for
years,
years,
like-
but there's
Yeah.
always, United have no money. Oh, we'll just get a £50 million player. We'll just get Mason Mount. We just need to get Højlund now.
No, but eventually that financial mismanagement comes back to bite you. You can't just keep
It should. No,
rolling
no,
that
it
on.
should do. It should do.
Well,
But
it
talking
has-
about
it
not
is
happening,
doing, it is
like-
doing.
Share price booming at the moment.
Yeah, it is doing, but it doesn't make United. I think have money in the bank to spend, but with FFP they can't spend it.
Yeah,
They
well,
haven't
that's-
sold
that's the
enough
whole point of
players
FFP,
to
isn't
be
it?
able to do that. Like, they overspent massively last summer. They are the worst sellers
You did
in
make Champions
European.
League, though.
They're the worst sellers in European football, mate.
I agree.
But-
Probably up there with Arsenal.
But it seems like the goalkeeper situation, which has been handled awfully by obviously
and almost sounds
kind
almost
of,
illegal as well.
well, it's terrible what they've done to David De Gea. Supposedly, like they offered him the contract. David De Gea after the time
Reportedly,
went
yeah.
David De Gea went, okay, I'll sign. They went, actually, no.
Well, I think what happened though, reportedly,
Crazy.
according to reports, is that United offered him the contract, let's say in January. He then waited 4 months to sign it and was like, "Oh, I'm not sure. Do I want to sign it?" Then when he signed it, they were like, "Well,
that does make a bit of a
Strange, though.
difference, to be fair.
it's not as if he signed it the same day and then they were like, actually, nah."
But if he signed it, no, but they haven't taken the contract away from him before he signed it.
Yeah, I know, but that waiting period, I think, must have.
But I think it's fair enough for a player to kind of wait. Like, I agree. Things can.
I agree. It's been handled
really badly as well.
It's been handled very poorly. It has been handled.
But
very
now there's a chance.
I still think he's going to stay De Gea.
Now there's a chance David De Gea doesn't stay, and who's in goal there? Dean Henderson's off by the looks of it. Maybe it's Dean Henderson.
I think De Gea will stay. I don't think United have got the money to sign Onana. We've seen them linked with Justin Bijlow over the weekend, who I don't think is going to cost an awful lot less, by the way. Under long contract at Feyenoord. They're going to be very, very reluctant to let him go after the season they had last year. He's not like a nailed-on, going to be a star. He is the guy. He's not a Mike Maignan or an Onana, do you know what I mean? Like, where he's going to come in and just brush De Gea aside immediately. I think United will end the summer, if I was a betting man, that De Gea signs a new contract. Dean Henderson gets sold and United sign a cheap number 2 because they have to sign the strike. They have to sign a striker. Have to. Like, they have to. Onana would be massive for United, and I would love him. He would be...
It's not the number 1 priority.
Number 2 priority. What a player he would be, and it would be transformative. But United can't score a goal. They had Weghorst up front for 6 months. He's left the club. Martial can't put 3 games together, and they're actively trying to sell him. There's not even a body up there. It's not even like Chelsea, where there's a Brozier or a David Datro Fofana. There's nobody.
Who's the striker then?
Well, they're clearly trying to get Højlund. They're very, very actively trying to get Højlund, aren't they? And I think they've had an offer rejected, according to reports in Italy. But I don't know who the striker is, but just you've got to get someone. It's got to be somebody.
Fees are getting crazy, aren't they? The talk around Højlund, 80 to 100 million euros. The guy only started playing regularly in January. Like, the Premier League, yes, I know we are very fortunate to be watching a league with a lot of money and there's a lot of transfer activity, but the fees are getting absolutely mental.
Crazy, aren't they?
They are.
But that's also like...
And the Man United tax adds 15%.
That's what's happened in football for God knows, like ever since the Premier League. Football money has just increased 100 times.
I feel like this summer is particularly mental though.
Yeah, United need to sell some players as well. Like Martial's probably going to be sold, or if they can find a bidder, they need to get that Fred deal to Fulham done and dusted. Dean Henderson, that whole deal is worth like 20-25 million pounds, which is a good amount of money to United, but they can't do that until De Gea leaves or stays, because they don't know if they sell him, then they're going to have no goalkeepers on the books at all. They had to pull out of the Tom Heaton deal to Luton because that was supposedly agreed. He was joining Luton.
Forgot you had Tom Heaton.
They've pulled that because they don't know what's going on. It's a mess, man.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
And the contracts you've offered these players over the years, like
farcical.
You know, they're on massive wages.
John Murtagh trying to undo the work done by Ed Woodward of those long contracts is not going to be easy to undo. Yeah. Easy to undo at all. Should we move on to some European transfers then?
Yeah, sure.
What have you got for us, Dukes?
So Javi Galán is moving to Atletico Madrid. Celta Vigo left back. Cesar Azpilicueta, maybe we'll come on to Zach in just a second. But Javi Galán's quite an exciting left back in terms of like he's like a bustling ball of energy on the left flank for Celta Vigo over the last couple of years. Before that was at Huesca, I believe. And Manu Sanchez, who's 22-year-old left back, who's been on loan at Osasuna for the last 3 years, is going the other way. So it's actually only around 4-5 million euros. And Javi Galán, I think only Fran Garcia, Messi, Mbappe, and Rafa Leao carried the ball into the final third more often than Javi Galán. So really exciting attacking left back, someone that, you know, a profile of player that Atletico Madrid haven't had for quite a while. They had Noel Molina on the other side, who finished the season really strongly at right back. So this is a good, I think, quite an exciting signing for Atletico Madrid. A little bit of a shame to lose a left back who's 6 years younger than him going the other way, but it's so cheap. But Azpilicueta looked like it was going to Inter Milan, but now Atletico Madrid.
I think Spain was always his.
Did you get a fee?
No, because we were. I think it's just out of respect, essentially. Like last year, he was meant to be going to Barcelona, and then we didn't sign a backup right back, and we were like, we kind of need you to stay just in case. And obviously, Reece James got injured. It was kind of good that he did stay for us. And yeah, now the Atletico Madrid offer came in. I don't know about how much they're paying him. And we were kind of happy to let him go now that we've got Gusto through the door. I mean, in terms of modern recent history legends for Chelsea, like he's very much up there.
100%.
Like I think there is the levels of Frank Lampard, John Terry, Drogba. Then it's Azpilicueta. The guy has won every trophy possible.
Do you mean in that bracket or literally fourth?
No, sorry, in that bracket.
Yeah,
In the bracket. The guy has won literally every trophy possible. that you can win as a footballer for club football. And we sat here, I think, on a couple of weeks ago as well. We were like, this is a guy that Chelsea bought for £7 million. Might have rose a little bit in 2012. And since then, he went on to do things that we'd never expected. There was a time where he couldn't get in at right back because Ivanovic was there. And so he had to play left back instead of Ashley Cole, and was fantastic at it. Played centre back in a 3-back under Conte, under Tuchel as well. Won the Champions League. Was a different kind of captain, I think, to maybe what, say, John Terry was, but still equally as fantastic. And like behind the scenes, just did so many incredible things. Like, was a pleasure to talk to, a pleasure to work with. Like, I've heard so many stories about from the staff about like things that he's done to help out. Like, he really is fantastic. And so yeah, it's. I'm glad he's been able to kind of go back to. I think he did want to kind of go to Spain as well to end his career. And so yeah, it's a fantastic career, and he's somebody that I think there's a wall at Stamford Bridge, and like we put like legends like faces on there with what they've done, what they've achieved, how many games they've played, and I really hope he gets onto that wall. He definitely deserves to. He's an icon, and I kind of wish him the best for Atletico Madrid. 2 years, wasn't it, as well, which is a good way to end his career. I was going to say though, it does feel like, I know bar Real Madrid and Barcelona, it does feel like La Liga still doesn't have a lot of money to spend, does it?
No, absolutely not. No, I think it's been struggling financially for a number of years, really. And the TV deals, you know, the amount it's doctored towards Real Madrid and Barcelona means that Atletico Madrid just can't really compete with the Premier League for deals anymore, really. And, you know, they've been cutting costs for a number of years.
Yeah.
Azpilicueta, I think he actually really dropped off quite dramatically in the last 18 months. But
does he even start for Atleti,
no,
do you think?
No. I think he'll probably play 15 games, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like, which is kind of, I guess, the market that these clubs are shopping in now when they don't have the money, right? So, look, for him, what a career, what a guy, what a servant as well for the club. It's going to be interesting who the next captain is for Chelsea, actually. Me and Joe was talking about this on the way to golf on Saturday. I was hinting towards Chelsea might just
give it to Thiago Silva.
So I was thinking Chelsea might just skip the gun and go, Reece James, here you go.
I don't know him personally, but does he feel like a captain type?
So,
he seems quite quiet.
So definitely maybe it's the media he's quiet. But from what I've heard, like behind the scenes and how he is towards players, he and on the pitch, he is vocal. And so, as I mentioned, like Aspie wasn't maybe the typical.
It's one of your longest-serving players as well.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, me too at this point. Yeah, and so it'll be interesting. And I was just thinking, like, okay, like I agree, Thiago Silva, but if Thiago Silva's only there for another year or two, do you not just maybe give it to Reece anyway?
I think I would give it to Thiago. Like, just natural
Silva,
leader in the dressing room. Surely
I honestly think
maybe give it to Sterling
yeah.
before Reece James as well.
No,
I think Reece is close.
Come on,
like, maybe it is Thiago Silva, but I think Reece is.
You don't like Raheem Sterling?
I think he's a good player coming off the back of a really bad season at Chelsea, and I'm unconvinced he's even going to be a starter next year. Like,
I think a fully fit and on form Raheem Sterling. I know we haven't seen it at Chelsea yet. I think he's definitely a starter. They don't have that many candidates for this role. I think that's what we're discovering.
Reece James, I think
it was going to be. I reckon it was going to be.
I think it was going to be Mount eventually.
And then Reece James, I think, because his dad himself have come out and been like very vocal about like
Wesley
he
Fofana?
wants to be. I honestly think Reece James, you could see him wearing this captain armband this season quite a lot.
Plus, it's not all about like being really loud, you know, to the media. You know, Harry Kane's not the loudest to the media, but you lead by example. And Reece James is
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Reece James leads by example.
Precisely.
One more transfer to talk about then in Germany, a big one. Metscher's moved.
Felix Metscher, yeah, a bit of a. It's quite a downgrade from Jude Bellingham. Yeah, I mean, German clubs know that Dortmund are quite cash flush at the moment after that Jude Bellingham sale. But, you know, we talk about Man United and Chelsea having some work to do in the market. I think Dortmund have some serious work to do in the market. That Edson Alvarez deal has been called off, completely collapsed. And Felix Metscher, look, he had a good year at Wolfsburg last year. I think he operated about 0.3 expected goals and assists per 90, which is only 0.1 less than Jude Bellingham. But in terms of like an all-round package, he's nowhere near that level. He actually ranks in the bottom 15% of midfielders for passes attempted and pass completion. And Jude Bellingham is good in every facet of the game. He's one of the best midfielders in the world, most well-rounded midfielders in the world. And yeah, Felix Metscher, I think, got 3 goals and 5 assists for Wolfsburg last year. That's useful, good profile to have. But just a massive drop off from Jude Bellingham.
But they were never going to exactly. They were never going to replace Jude Bellingham for a like for like.
Yeah,
really,
he's also he's still young. He's 22, but that is crazy to think that's 2 years older than Jude Bellingham as well. So yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't go for a more defensively minded midfielder and potentially another midfielder too, because Rafael Guerreiro played in midfield towards the back end of the season as well. Obviously left to go join Bayern. So slightly worrying times for Dortmund.
Although Terzic was reportedly one of the guys who was quite keen on pulling out of the Edson Alvarez deal to play Emre Can as like a deeper lying midfielder.
Yeah, it's where he played for most of the year last year, Emre Can. I think they thought Sally Ozcan, who they signed the previous summer from Cologne, I think it was going to have more of a starting role, but it was actually Emre Can that dropped deep. And actually his role did allow Jude Bellingham to far forward and score as many goals as he did last year and win Bundesliga Player of the Year. So Emre Can didn't necessarily need replacing, but I do think they need quite a few midfielders in there because they do look a little light in quality in that area.
Yeah, so there we go. Another episode of Monday Vibes done and dusted. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button. If you haven't already watched Sunday Vibes yesterday, where we are identifying / scouting budget options for big money moves this summer, make sure you go and watch that. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later.